There has been waves of coup d'etats happening in West Africa lately. And by West Africa, I mean most of the former French colonies. In the last 17 months, France has lost Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso. And you might be wondering why this is happening. The history between France and its former colonies is long and complex, and that is because of France's deep ties on the continent, and it started over a century ago. In 1885, European superpowers were hungry for the abundant natural resources found in Africa, and they wanted their share. This started something known as a scramble for Africa, and these European superpowers divided Africa among themselves like a piece of cake throughout the years, starting a second wave of colonization on the continent. And getting a piece of the cake meant they have access to their natural resources. Resources that will make every one of these superpowers super rich. And one of these superpowers is France. In the early 20th century, France really took a foothold in West Africa. Its colonies will later be called the Francophone countries. And France controlled the destinies of these countries without involving the Africans in decision making. It was like the Africans were not citizens in their own country, but subjects to France, a country thousands of miles away. The leaders of these colonies answered only to France, and failure to do so meant harsh treatment. And as a safety net, France came up with an ingenious plan. If these colonies want freedom, they would have to pay their way through it. More on that later. France benefited heavily on the backs of Africans as they extorted valuable resources, and they imposed heavy taxes on these colonies as a way to get richer while leaving the Africans in these colonies with nothing. With all the riches France made from the backs of its colonies, little improvements were made to the Africans who toiled to make it happen. This was another form of slavery at that time, even though it was abolished decades earlier. But after the Second World War, Africans had enough of colonial masters and started demanding for independence. And for the most part, it worked. Africans were somehow able to get Europe out of Africa. But you and I know that wasn't going to be easy, especially with France. They were not ready to leave all the riches to the Africans, so they devised something out of the box. When Secretary of Guinea wanted France out of his country, the French became so angry that they destroyed everything in the country, which represented what they called the benefits from French colonization. Yeah, that's what they called it. This was meant to be a warning to other Francophone countries, and guess what? It worked. The political leaders were terrified to say no to France, because doing so meant that France will organize a coup to overthrow you, or you get the idea. The first president of the Republic of Togo, Sylvanus Olympio, wanted independence for his people. But with what happened in Guinea and other countries, he was forced to come to an agreement with France. And that agreement still hurt French colonies to this day. Remember I talked about France's ingenious plan? This is how it came about. President Olympio agreed to pay an annual debt to France for the benefit Togo got from French colonization. Trust me, I'm not making this up. France demanded a hefty price, calling it colonial debt, which was close to 40% of the country's budget way back in 1963. France did not stop there. They made all the French colonies follow suit. It basically became impossible for these colonies to get rid of France, in theory, and this debt is being paid to this very day. This money has contributed billions to the French economy. And where does this leave the Africans? Destabilized economies that has lasted for decades, and France is the one reaping the benefits of their labor. Even the European Union spoke against it, but it's not surprising that it fell on deaf ears. France was not ready to let go of the resources and the riches it came with. I'm talking about billions of dollars in revenue every year. There's a lot of moving parts to this story to cover in one video. So subscribe and hit the bell button because I'll do a follow-up video where I talk about the impact this deal has had over these former French colonies, because it could be certainly part of why this is happening. The reason these countries want freedom from France might not be clear, but recently Mali announced that the French currency won't be the country's currency. And again, French won't be the official language. The implications of this is yet to be seen, but it's clear they want nothing to do with France. One thing is for sure, if Francophone countries start this trend of abolishing French influence, it will be a start of really getting France out of the continent of Africa. Hey, it's okay to be optimistic. These are some of the points as to why these coups might be happening right now. This is a developing story, so I'll make sure to update you guys as it progresses. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.